Hello, it's Wednesday, July 5th, 2017. You are listening to Inception Radio Network, voice of the fringe majority. This is Carol Carl with UFO Headline News. We thought it might be fun before we bring you tonight's Skywatch forecast to hear something about one of the people who brings us this great information. It's Bruce McClure. He served as lead writer for Earth Sky's popular Tonight pages since 2004. We've been reading them here on the UFO Headline News since 2014, roughly. Bruce McClure is a sundial aficionado whose love for the heavens has taken him to Lake Titicaca in Bolivia and sailing in the North Atlantic, where he earned his Celestial Navigation Certificate through the School of Ocean Sailing and Navigation. He also writes and hosts public astronomy programs and planetarium programs in and around his home in upstate New York. So let's hear what Bruce McClure has to offer us tonight in our skies. He suggests let the bright waxing gibbous moon guide you to the star Antares and planet Saturn. He expects both Antares and Saturn to be bright enough to overcome tonight's lunar glare from that pesky moon. The constellation Scorpius the Scorpion might offer a little difficulty making out that fishhook shape tonight, but the moon will drop out of the evening sky by the middle of this month, and then you can see Scorpius the Scorpion in all its starlit glory. But for now, use the moon to find Antares and Saturn, and then let Antares and Saturn be your guides to the constellation Scorpius once that moon has moved onward. Both Antares and Saturn are first magnitude brightness, so they're still pretty easy to see even on a moonlit night. You can distinguish Saturn from Antares by color. Antares shines in a sparkling reddish hue, while Saturn appears more golden. If you have difficulty discerning the color, try binoculars. That should do it. Or just wait till the moon moves away. Because Antares is a star, it'll be more apt to twinkle than planet Saturn, which typically shines with a steadier light. A first magnitude star, like Antares, tends to sparkle most wildly when it's close to the horizon, and at such times planets can twinkle a bit too. Earth's atmosphere, of course, is what's causing this twinkling, and we're looking through more atmosphere in the direction of the horizon than overhead. With a telescope, even the modest backyard variety, you can easily see the rings of Saturn. Once you spot Saturn in the telescope, you'll see why so many sky-watching enthusiasts consider Saturn the jewel of the solar system. Because the moon moves eastward in front of the constellations of the zodiac, look for the moon to pair up with Saturn July 6th and be east of Saturn on the day after July 7th. So here's that standard bottom line. As soon as darkness falls on July 5th, 2017, watch for the moon, the star Antares, and planet Saturn. Splendid. Still in the cosmos, sciencemag.org brings us this, with a byline for Daniel Clary. Milky Way's superfast stars may have been fired out of a nearby galaxy. A small number of stars moving so fast they'll eventually escape the Milky Way may not come from our galaxy at all, according to a new study. Until now, scientists have largely believed that such hypervelocity stars originate when binary stars get torn apart by the supermassive black hole at the center of the Milky Way, which consumes one star and flings the other away at incredible speeds. There are alternative scenarios, of course, but none explains why most of the 20 or so hypervelocity stars found so far are all in the same area of sky, in the vicinity of Leo and Sextans constellations. That's spelled Sextans. Enter the Sloan Digital Sky Survey. It's provided a team of astronomers with position and velocity data, as well as computer simulations of stellar evolution in the Large Magellanic Cloud. That's a small satellite galaxy near the Milky Way, also known as the LMC. All this information shows that these speeding stars might come from there. Lower velocity runaway stars can be produced when one half of a binary pair explodes as a supernova, blasting its partner away. Such an event in the LMC, which has 10% of the Milky Way's mass, could easily eject it from the satellite galaxy altogether. And because the Large Magellanic Cloud is orbiting the Milky Way at nearly 400 kilometers per second, a star ejected from it could be moving faster than the 500 kilometers per second that makes it a hypervelocity star in the Milky Way. The team published a report today in Monthly Notices of the Royal Astronomical Society and at the United Kingdom National Astronomy Meeting in Hull, England. Most of the known hypervelocity stars have trajectories that would indeed fit this scenario. Confirmation will hopefully come next year when Europe's star mapping satellite, and they're calling her Gaia, publishes its full catalog. The team predicts it should find more hypervelocity stars along the past and future orbit of the Large Magellanic Cloud. If you'd like to see an image of the LMC, the Large Magellanic Cloud, you can find that via link later at ufoheadlinenews.com. Indeed, spectacular. Here's something that definitely shouldn't fall into the category of fear-mongering. It's more of an awareness kind of thing. We picked up this story from bgr.com. It gets a byline from Mike Weiner. Here's the headline. NASA has a plan for preventing asteroid strikes, and it's going to test it. The threat of an asteroid striking Earth is pretty scary, and not just in all those ways Hollywood movies have depicted. But human technology has reached a point where it might actually be possible for us to prevent an asteroid impact if we see one heading in our direction. NASA has a concept for a tool that could do the trick. It's called the DART. That stands for Double Asteroid Redirection Test, and the agency is finally moving forward with its plan to design and hopefully build the hardware it needs to save humanity's bacon. The idea behind DART is that by spotting a troublesome asteroid well in advance, a kinetic impactor could nudge the space rock off its collision course with Earth. The plan includes sending a spacecraft to the asteroid and impacting it in such a way to alter its orbit. The spacecraft wouldn't have to be particularly large, just about the size of a refrigerator would do, because even a small change in the asteroid's trajectory would be amplified over time and cause it to miss planet Earth. The DART plan is currently moving from the concept to design phase, and the actual testing of the hardware is expected to take place in 2024. At that point, here's the plan. A DART spacecraft will be sent to an asteroid that doesn't pose a threat to Earth, but will perform that same task as it would on a potentially cataclysmic space rock in order to gauge how well it actually works. And if it does, the fear of an asteroid collision could become a thing of the past. Would that not be cool? Speaking of cool and past, it's Way Back Wednesday here at UFO Headline News. We'll be going way back to the evening of October 11th, 1973, when two co-workers had what they called the Pascagoula abduction. We'll go over the principal players, the first two witnesses, and recap that event, and then add an update. It turns out that Charlie Hickson and Calvin Parker weren't the only witnesses that night. Speaking of updates, here's the latest on SpaceX's attempt to launch that Falcon 9 rocket. Journalist James Dean gets the byline here for Florida Today. SpaceX might be ready Wednesday evening, that's tonight, for a third attempt to launch a Falcon 9 rocket from the Kennedy Space Center. It'll be carrying the Intelsat communications satellite. The Air Force has approved a potential liftoff of 7:35 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time at the opening of a nearly 1-hour window over at Pad 39A. However, as of earlier this morning, SpaceX wasn't expected to confirm the mission status, and no weather forecast is available. As of Tuesday afternoon, the company hadn't reported the cause of the computer-triggered abort that scrubbed Monday's countdown with 10 seconds left. It was a repeat of what happened Sunday. They scrubbed that as well. There was no guarantee launch teams could identify and fix the problem in time to proceed with the Wednesday countdown. Here's an official statement from their website. Quote, "Out of an abundance of caution, SpaceX will be spending the 4th of July doing a full review of the rocket and launch pad systems. The next launch opportunity for Intelsat 35E is now no earlier than Wednesday." End quotes. Earlier, CEO Elon Musk had said the launch would not occur before Wednesday or Thursday to allow time for that necessary review. He said, quote, "Only one chance to get it right," end quotes. Intelsat, the Luxembourg-headquartered commercial satellite operator, has invested several $100 million in the launch of its fourth Epic satellite, and they agree with Elon Musk there's only one chance to get it right. Despite the consecutive scrubs, SpaceX is still trying to launch its third mission in less than 2 weeks, which would be an impressive achievement. Because the rocket is lifting a heavy, nearly 15,000-pound satellite to a high orbit, no booster landing will be attempted. If the launch slips into Thursday, it would coincide with another high-profile event at Kennedy Space Center. Space industry heavyweights are expected to descend on the spaceport to welcome Vice President Mike Pence, who will deliver a speech inside the Vehicle Assembly Building and tour the facilities. Pence will chair a newly revived National Space Council, a development President Trump announced last Friday in a White House ceremony. If you're interested, there are links to more on this story. You can find them later at ufoheadlinenews.com. Well, it's here, part 2 of 3, Cheryl Costa's fascinating series on Project Blue Book Origins. She's publishing this in the Syracuse New Times. Here we go. A little after 11 a.m., September 10th, 1951, a United States Army radar station at Fort Monmouth detected an unknown low-altitude target. The Signal Corps operator and an Army officer in the radar clocked that target with an approximate speed of about 700 miles per hour. The tracking station lost contact with the high-speed target as it neared New York City. The radar tracking event resulted in a great deal of interest, as well as somber military trepidations. For in that era, military jets didn't fly anywhere near 700 miles per hour. While there were test aircrafts that had brief periods of that sort of speed performance, nothing the military had could fly and maintain that speed. This incident resulted in the Air Force being severely criticized by the other branches of the military. At issue, the Air Force's dismal handling of investigations related to a potential threat to national security, namely UFOs. In a knee-jerk reaction to that threat to national security criticism, the Air Force appointed Intelligence Officer Captain Edward Ruppelt to assume command of the UFO investigation project. This project had had several names. It had gone from Project Sign to Project Grudge, and now enter Project Blue Book. Captain Edward Ruppelt took his new task seriously. He put great effort into reorganizing and streamlining the internal reporting processes. In the spring of 1952, under Captain Ruppelt's guiding hand, intelligence officers at all United States air bases were given clearance to file UFO reports to Project Blue Book via normal military communication channels. This improved reporting system turned out to be fortuitous. In July of 1952, what occurred was the Great Washington, D.C. UFO flap. From July 12th through July 29th, Washington, D.C. was inundated with UFO sightings. These things flew individually and in formations right over the Capitol. Air traffic radar controllers at the Washington National Airport tracked distinctive blips on their radar screens over several consecutive weekends. The nearest Air Force facility was Andrews Air Force Base, but its runways were under repair at the time. The nearest air base that could respond was a base in Newcastle, Delaware. F-94 jets were scrambled to intercept the lights in the sky and the blips on the radar. When the fighters got into D.C. airspace, the bright UFO lights had winked out, and the pilots reported they didn't see anything. Of course, after the pilots left D.C. airspace, the UFOs came back and again appeared on national airports' radar screens. On another UFO sighting occasion, scrambled fighter jets chased the elusive lights. Air Force pilot William Patterson told investigators during a debriefing, quote, "I was at my maximum speed, but I ceased chasing them because I saw no chance of overtaking them," end quotes. Naturally, the press had a field day with the news. The Washington Post headline read, Saucer outran jet, pilot says. Air Force puts lid on inquiry. Another newspaper in the District of Columbia at the time, the Washington Daily News, commented on the Air Force's lame explanations for the UFO sightings. Quote, recent attempts to explain saucers as optical illusions have been shaken by recent radar sightings. Illusions don't show up on a radar screen. End quotes. And as they say, that's all she wrote for this segment. It's part 2. Part 3 we will cover right here on UFOheadlinenews.com on Inception Radio Network next Wednesday. Oh, Cheryl Costa notes, if you're interested in joining a monthly UFO discussion group in the Onondaga County area of New York, drop her an email. There'll be a link to that at UFOheadlinenews.com later. So the entertainment industry is responding to UFOs in all new kinds of ways. Here's an article we grabbed from Variety.com, one of the oldest, most established trade paper publications. Headline, Sony teases Close Encounters of a Third Kind re-release. J.D. Knapp, staff editor, gets the byline here. Sony released a brand new teaser for Close Encounters of the Third Kind over the long 4th of July weekend, prompting reboot and re-release speculation. But no, not so fast. A new website referencing the 1977 original has also popped up to celebrate the 40th anniversary of that science fiction film. There's a video entitled This Means Something. It was uploaded to the Sony Pictures Entertainment YouTube page on Monday, which just so happens, according to this article, to be World UFO Date. Oh, such confusion, gentle listeners. Apparently, the original World UFO Day date was June 24th, and then along comes this year's date, July 2nd, and now we're reading, according to Variety, it was July 1st, Monday. But back to the story. This new footage features an air traffic control radar animation. It shows it locating an unidentified flying object targeting one of its planes. While many fans expected the clip to be an unofficial announcement of a Close Encounters reboot or a sequel, the studio actually intends to re-release the film theatrically for a week this September. The website wearestillnotalone.com gives believers the opportunity to sign up for, quote, updates on UFO sightings, end quotes. In actuality, it serves as a source for sci-fi fans to connect with this marketing campaign. Steven Spielberg's Close Encounters of the Third Kind starred Richard Dreyfuss, Francois Truffaut, Melinda Dillon, Terry Garr, Bob Balaban, and Carrie Guffey. It was originally distributed by Columbia Pictures. It was nominated for 8 Academy Awards, and it won for Best Cinematography and Best Sound Effects Editing through Special Achievement Awards. The 40th anniversary of Close Encounters of the Third Kind is officially November 16th, but the re-release will hit select theaters for 1 week starting September 1st. And if you've never seen it in a theater with that theater sound, well, maybe you haven't seen it. Just saying. So save us a seat. We'll buy the popcorn. Let's pop over to Mahopac, New York, shall we? They spell that M-A-H-O-P-A-C. It's a MUFON sighting, courtesy of UFOstalker.com. It's got an official number, 84827. The date of this sighting is the 4th of July. It got a same-day report. Here's the summary. As high as a plane, stationary like a helicopter, but moving way too fast. And we can imagine what you're thinking, gentle listeners. 4th of July fireworks, well, in this case, perhaps not. There's a photo included with this sighting. You can check it out for yourselves later at UFOheadlinenews.com. Under sighting specifics, our witness offers a viewing distance over 1 mile. The altitude was over 500 feet without cloud cover. The sighting duration was 8 minutes, and the object features are described as unknown. The flight path was stationary, and then a path with directional change, and then a path with hovering. This object is reported to have been shaped like an egg. There isn't any pertinent meteorology. We'll just jump right into the sighting. In the first-person words of our witness, here we go. This object was a super bright red light with a white flash. It was stationary for 5 minutes, and when I saw it, it looked extremely high in the sky. It seemed to be the height of a plane, but this object didn't move. When it did eventually move, it was a perfect, quick set of small movements, approximately 3 smaller movements, and then when it left, it moved twice to the left, once away, and then gone. In a flash, it flew away. I saw this live. It was extremely bright, but far away. 2 other people saw this with me. By the way, the photo I submitted with this account had the flash on. Interesting, there is that photo. You can see it later at ufoheadlinenews.com. And now, gentle listeners, Way Back Wednesday, which requires both a shift in location. We'll go from that sighting in Mahopac, New York, to Mississippi, city of Pascagoula. Also, a shift in time is required. We're going from 2017 to 1973. Hang on. We're there. Here's the story. The Pascagoula abduction went pretty much as follows. It's a purported, although that's Wiki's words, not ours, UFO sighting and alien abduction, alleged to have occurred in 1979 when co-workers Charlie Hickson and Calvin Parker said they were abducted by aliens while they were fishing near Pascagoula, Mississippi. The incident earned substantial mass media attention. And it went something like this. On the evening of October 11, 1973, co-workers 42-year-old Charles Hickson and 19-year-old Calvin Parker told the Jackson County, Mississippi Sheriff's Office they'd been fishing off a pier on the west bank of the Pascagoula River in Mississippi. They heard a whirring, whizzing sound, saw 2 flashing blue lights and an oval-shaped object 30 to 40 feet across and 8 to 10 feet high. Parker and Hickson claimed they were conscious but paralyzed, while 3 creatures took them aboard this object and subjected them to examination before releasing them. Within days, Pascagoula, Mississippi was the center of an international news story, with reporters swarming the town. 2 prominent ufologists, James Harder of the Aerial Phenomena Research Organization, also known as APRO, and Dr. J. Allen Hynek himself interviewed these 2 men. James Harder attempted to hypnotize them, and he concluded Hickson and Parker, quote, experienced an extraterrestrial phenomena, end quotes, while Dr. J. Allen Hynek believed they had a, quote, very real, frightening experience, end quotes. Hickson later appeared on talk shows, gave lectures and interviews, and in 1983 he authored a self-published book, that title, UFO Contact at Pascagoula. Hickson claimed additional encounters with aliens in 1974, alleging that the aliens told him they were, quote, peaceful, end quotes. Parker later attended UFO conventions. This article unfortunately doesn't mention whether he was a speaker or just in attendance. In 1993, Parker started a company called UFO Investigations to produce television stories about UFOs. Charlie Hickson transitioned at age 80, September 9, 2011. Then there was the parade of the usual suspects, skeptics. Aviation journalist and UFO skeptic Philip J. Glass found, quote, discrepancies, end quotes, in Hickson's story. When Hickson took a polygraph exam, the examiner determined that Hickson believed the abduction story. But Philip J. Glass argued that the test was administered by a, quote, inexperienced, end quotes, operator, and that Hickson refused to take another by more experienced police operators. Glass concluded then the case was a hoax based on these and other discrepancies. Well-known skeptic investigator Joe Nickell wrote that Hickson's behavior was, quote, questionable, end quotes, and that he altered or embellished his story when later appearing on television shows. Joe Nickell speculated Hickson might have fantasized the encounter with aliens during a hypnagogic waking dream state, adding that Parker's corroboration of the tale was likely due to suggestibility, since he told police he had, quote, passed out at the beginning of the incident and failed to regain consciousness until it was over, end quotes. Now let's fast forward to this breaking news regarding this story. It comes to us by way of Robert Barrow, whose tagline is, Whose useful idiots shall we be today? Well, moving from that, this is his column entitled As Weird as It Gets. And here's the story. Mike Cataldo, now long retired from the Navy, served in 1973 as a chief petty officer in Mississippi. Like most of the country, he was familiar with the Hickson-Parker report, but he never met or spoke with either man. However, for all the years that followed, he shared with friends and family another side of the story, something of vital significance that he finally decided to impart publicly late in 2006. Mike Cataldo tried to locate a reporter in Pascagoula, the writer of the original UFO story. He eventually was put in touch with writer Natalie Chambers of the Associated Press. Natalie Chambers' interview with Mike Cataldo appeared in the Northeast Mississippi Daily Journal, October 21st, 2006, but it failed to make that coast-to-coast splash, even though famed radio commentator Paul Harvey realized Mike Cataldo's importance. In fact, Paul Harvey dedicated part of his Saturday, October 27th, 2006 national broadcast to Natalie Chambers' shocker. Let's pick up now with Natalie Chambers' shocker. Quote, when Charles Hickson and Calvin Parker told the world in 1973 they were abducted by aliens while fishing on the Pascagoula River, few believed them, end quotes, her article began. Quote, now, after 28 years, this is in 2006, it appears they weren't alone in their experience on that October 11th night, end quotes. Indeed, at about the same time and in the same area as that UFO incident, Mike Cataldo and fellow crewmates Ted Peralta and Mac Hanna were driving on United States Highway 90 heading to Ocean Springs. Cataldo was in the back seat. Quote, we saw a very strange object in the horizon going from northeast across Highway 90, end quotes, Cataldo recalled. Quote, it was going pretty fast. It went down into a wooded area and into the marsh. It hovered over the tree line, maybe a minute. We actually pulled off the road and watched it. We said, my God, what is that? Cataldo said the thing looked just like a large tambourine with little lights flashing on it. Quote, as quickly as we saw it, it just vanished, end quotes. Some daylight still remained as dusk approached, so the men got a good look at this object. But Cataldo tells of a second sighting minutes later, this time in St. Andrews. He was by himself in his car at that point and nearing his home. Quote, it wasn't as high up as the first one we saw. It was real, end quotes. Almost hyperventilating as he ran inside to tell his wife, Cataldo knew he had to tell Navy officials. As a member of the pre-commissioning crew of the USS Tunney, under construction at Ingalls Shipyard, he reported for work the next morning and immediately contacted his executive officer to make a statement. After the weekend, he contacted Keesler Air Force Base in Biloxi and left his phone number. However, if Mike Cataldo expected tea and sympathy, he was mistaken. Quote, my executive officer and crew members thought we were just lunatics, just whacked out, end quotes, he told Natalie Chambers. Quote, it never came up again. Nobody called me. Nobody did anything. Other UFO researchers, Kenny Young, for one, also contacted Mike Cataldo after Natalie Chambers' article appeared and attempted, but so far unsuccessfully, to locate those two fellow Navy witnesses. Cataldo provided a few more details of the object, perhaps the most intriguing being that it was, quote, less than half a mile away and looked as big as any big American airliner I've ever seen, end quotes. Importantly, Mike Cataldo admitted, quote, I never knew of the Hickson-Parker abduction until days later. It happened on Thursday, and it wasn't till Sunday that I saw the headline in the morning paper about the two men taken aboard a flying saucer. I'm telling you, I about died, end quotes. So, gentle listeners, connected sightings, connected experiences, abductions, we leave it for you to decide. We hope you've enjoyed Way Back Wednesday. We gotta bounce because that's a wrap. Thank you for listening to Inception Radio Network. Follow today's broadcast at ufoheadlinenews.com. Take care of each other. Loving kindness. We're all in this together. This is Carol Carl. See you tomorrow.